Hey, what's going on with y'all, man? It's Black Balloon, and we're coming back with another video, so y'all already know what's going on. Alright, y'all. Now, in this video, like I said a couple videos back when we was talking about a bunch of that Epstein stuff, I did want to do a video where we went into the death of Jeffrey Epstein and whether or not we think he died the way that they say he did. You know, do we believe that he was actually murdered? Do we believe that he died the way that they say he did? Or was it something else, something a little bit more sinister? Or was this a plan by people that were above him to get him out of the way so his trial basically never happened, and the things that they're trying to put out about this entire case, including the list of names, never actually make it to where it would have with Jeffrey Epstein being alive?
I also talked to Jeffrey Epstein's brother, who gave me exclusive insight and tells me that he thinks the evidence shows that Jeffrey did not kill himself. In July, Jeffrey Epstein was found semi-conscious with marks on his neck in his jail cell from an apparent suicide attempt. The attorney for his cellmate requested video from outside the cell to prove that his client saved Epstein's life. Last month, Metropolitan Correctional Center officials said they couldn't find it. A day later, they announced they did have it. But now, federal prosecutors say the video no longer exists and that MCC, quote, inadvertently preserved video from the wrong tier. I spoke with the cellmate's attorney from New York.
The various and inconsistent accounts of what happened to the video are deeply troubling. We are going to request that the court conduct a hearing with live testimony to determine exactly what took place.
Bruce Barquette isn't the only one troubled. So is Epstein's brother, Mark. Here's why. Epstein's jail cell looked like this when the medical examiner arrived hours after his death, August 10th. Bed sheets strewn around, two fashioned into nooses with complicated knots. Epstein was dead, but EMTs inexplicably moved his body before investigators arrived. And Mark Epstein tells me what he sees in these photos doesn't add up to suicide by hanging, saying, quote, all we know is the guard said he cut him down when he found him. If you look at the noose, the long end of the noose has a hemmed edge and it wasn't cut. No creases. Mark Epstein says this noose doesn't show any cut marks, so how could it have been part of a bed sheet Epstein used to hang himself? There is a piece of orange bed sheet looped through a hole on the bottom bunk, not tied on, not able to hold Epstein's weight, according to his brother. Mark says his brother was upbeat before his death because he was about to have a bond hearing, telling me, quote, at first I thought, okay, maybe he didn't want to go through this. He decided to take himself out. He was facing life in jail. But then I started seeing and learning what was going on. No, nobody thought he was going to kill himself. Jeffrey wasn't a wimp. I knew him better than anybody. We were brothers. What about the fact that Epstein changed his will 2 days before he died? Some say that indicates he was planning his suicide. But Mark Epstein tells me Jeffrey changed his will frequently, and he knows there was one particular reason he changed it this time, and that it had nothing to do with his criminal case. Terry Parker, WPBF.
Now, here's an article I found that goes a little bit more into detail on how Jeffrey Epstein actually died. It says Epstein was detained at the Metropolitan Correction Center in Manhattan, which is considered to be the strictest prison in the United States. Now, this article is going to kind of question him actually unaliving himself and whether or not it was even possible considering how he was kept in the prison, basically. So it says inside the walls of this prison, fluorescent lights are never switched off and inmates experience almost no human interaction. Furthermore, Epstein was kept in the most secure area of that prison. Inmates are kept in their cells for 23 hours each day, and CCTV cameras watch them as they shower, go to the bathroom, and sit alone in their heavily barricaded cells. Furthermore, Epstein was an extremely high-profile inmate. In short, every single condition was met for him to be closely watched all the time by a team of people trained to monitor inmates and promptly respond in case of crisis. Considering these facts, there's no way Epstein could have single-handedly unalived himself without triggering a major security alert. But that's not all. It says he was also on suicide watch. 2 weeks ago, Epstein was discovered semi-conscious. This was 2 weeks before he died, lying in a fetal position with marks on his neck. Despite the constant surveillance of inmates in his prison area, authorities never confirmed what actually happened. However, we do know that the event led to Epstein being placed on suicide watch. So it says in a maximum level security prison, such as the Metropolitan Correction Center, which is also known as the Guantanamo of New York, you better believe that suicide watch is no joke. Also, suicide watch is an intensive monitoring process used to ensure that a person cannot attempt suicide. Usually the term is used in reference to inmates or patients in prison, a hospital, a psychiatric hospital, or a military base. People are placed on suicide watch when it's believed that they exhibit warning signs indicating that they may be at risk of committing bodily harm or fatal self-injury. People under suicide watch are put into an environment where it would be difficult for them to hurt themselves. In many cases, any dangerous items will be removed from the area, such as sharp objects and some furniture, or they may be placed in a special padded cell which has nothing outcropping from the walls, meaning they would not be able to unalive themselves. They won't have shoestrings. They won't have anything in the area that they're housed that would allow them to unalive themselves. So to sum it all up, Epstein was inside the most secure prison in the U.S., and he was an extremely high-profile inmate. He was in the most secure area of that prison, and he was also on suicide watch. There's absolutely no way he could have unalived himself without being stopped by prison security. So something was clearly allowed to happen. This is something that the lawyer said who represented three women in the 2008 trial against Epstein. He said this about Epstein's first attempt to unalive himself. I question whether or not it was a true attempt, that Mr. Epstein was involved in a jail, or whether or not there may be some powerful people who just don't want him to talk. If he goes on trial, everyone he's been in contact with will ultimately be fair game. There's no doubt in my mind that no jail will protect you when there's powerful people that want to reach you, wherever you are. I do question whether it was a true attempt. I mean, how do you choke yourself? It doesn't make any sense. There are reports someone came after him, but that could just be because he's a pedophile. Those types of individuals don't last long in prison. If Epstein is in general population or anywhere available to the general population, I believe his life is in jeopardy. The death of Epstein is extremely convenient for the world elite. While mass media was extremely careful to not communicate information that could harm its elite owners, a long trial presented high risk of sensitive leaks. High-powered individuals from all around the world were at risk of being involved in a sordid affair involving the trafficking and abuse of little ones. On a wider scale, the sick, twisted culture and lifestyle of the world elite was being exposed. Furthermore, a closer inquiry into some nonprofit organizations such as the Clinton Foundation, with which Epstein was deeply involved, and Ghislaine Maxwell, the Terramar Project, could have opened a gigantic can of worms. They do not want the masses to discover the real reason why the elite is so concerned with Haiti and why so many people go down there to do, quote-unquote, charity work. Now, this was something else I wanted to read to y'all that I found to be pretty interesting as far as people that died around Jeffrey Epstein, who he was in contact with or was considered to be close to him as a friend. So it says Mark Middleton, the presidential advisor who introduced Jeffrey Epstein to Bill Clinton, was found dead by hanging using a cheap extension cord with a gunshot wound to his chest. His death was actually deemed an unalive attempt. Well, he didn't quite attempt it. He unalived himself. A few months prior, a woman linked to Middleton was found dead using a similar extension cord. There's something sinister happening here.
When Mark Middleton was called to testify as part of these investigations, he pleaded the fifth 28 times, including to the question, "Are you a foreign agent?"
Wow.
So there's obviously a deeper story here. The question is, why wasn't Mark Middleton, suicided, whatever you want to call it, back then? Why did it happen so recently? I would argue it's because in 2019, when the Epstein case broke, it was alleged by the Daily Beast that Epstein had only had 5 meetings with Mark Middleton. And then you find out from Daily Mail gets White House visitor logs a couple of months, maybe like 4 months before Mark Middleton's found dead. It was around 15. It was much higher. Something was going on.
As you probably know, Jeffrey Epstein was a billionaire child trafficker whose 2019 arrest, incarceration, and highly anticipated trial threatened to expose the elite's sick tendencies. The flight logs of his infamous Lolita Express, the private jet used to transport guests and victims to Epstein's private island, is a who's who of the global elite. Politicians, celebrities, scientists, financiers, members of royal families, etc. Dozens of prominent people embarked on the Lolita Express and possibly engaged in unspeakable acts with the young victims that were trafficked by Epstein throughout the years. Bill Clinton boarded that plane over 20 times, but that long-awaited trial never took place. This is possibly the reason why Epstein was unalived, and I don't think he died the way that they told us he did. I I would honestly assume that they used someone that was in the prison to do it, and obviously to stage it and make it look the way that it did. His brother said, in all the pictures, nothing actually looks like, a real attempt. Like, you just looking at it, you could tell it was staged that way. So it goes on to say, Epstein was found dead in his cell under mysterious circumstances. And since then, several individuals who were close to Epstein also died in mysterious circumstances. For instance, in 2020, Hollywood producer Steve Bing, who was close with Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton, died after falling off the 27th floor of his apartment building. While the official cause of death is unalive, some claim that he was killed Russian mafia style because he knew too much. And I'm saying unalive a lot, y'all, because I don't want to say the S word, because YouTube keeps giving me, they keep giving me age restrictions when I do videos that talk about someone unaliving themselves. So we're just going to talk around that term, because that Elisa Lam video, they demonetized it and gave me an age restriction. And I don't even think I said the S word, but we just got to go around that. So last February, Jean-Luc Brunel, the fashion agent who procured over 1,000 girls for Epstein, was found dead hanging in his jail cell. Again, the official cause of death was deemed an unalive. Again, observers believe that he might have been killed because he knew too much.
He was a close confidant of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and a former French modeling agent facing charges of his own. Tonight, Jean-Luc Brunel is dead, found in his Paris prison cell hanged with his bed sheets, according to the Paris prosecutor's office. Authorities believe the 75-year-old died by suicide. It comes less than 3 years after Epstein was found dead in a Manhattan prison under similar circumstances. His death has been ruled a suicide. Brunel was awaiting trial after several former models accused him of rape and sexual harassment when they were minors.
What he was accused of in the context of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein was using his position as a modeling scout to lure women to be abused by Epstein and by himself.
In a statement, Brunel's lawyers maintained their client's innocence, writing in part, his decision was not driven by guilt, but by a deep sense of injustice. It's the latest twist in the sprawling saga of Jeffrey Epstein, coming just days after Prince Andrew, another Epstein associate, settled a sexual abuse lawsuit against him without admitting wrongdoing. And in December, Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of luring young girls to be abused by Epstein. She has requested a new trial. Tonight, Maxwell's brother calls this latest death in the Epstein orbit incomprehensible.
Now, that's actually crazy. A fashion agent who, basically procured and recruited over 1,000 girls for Epstein was found dead, hanging in his cell. This is the fourth person that was close to Epstein that was found dead after Epstein was outed in 2019. Had the presidential advisor, the woman that was close to the presidential advisor, this movie producer, and then a fashion agent. This is the guy that has personally invited Jeffrey Epstein to the White House at least 7 times. Middleton also boarded Epstein's jet multiple times. Despite Middleton's great influence on the president, his career at the White House ended on a sour note. Middleton left the White House in February 1995 and was accused of setting himself up as an international deal maker, exactly the kind of person that would appeal to Epstein. In 1996, an investigation by the White House found that Middleton had abused his access to impress business clients, and he was barred from the executive mansion without senior approval. On May 7, 2022, the presidential advisor Middleton died suddenly at the age of 59. He was found unalived from a tree with a cheap dollar store type extension cord around his neck, and a gunshot wound to his chest. According to authorities, Middleton trespassed on Heifer Ranch, which was located about 30 miles from his house, and used a table to construct makeshift gallows. Then, despite lots of unanswered questions, the death was quickly determined to be an unalive. Furthermore, the sheriff stopped speaking with the press due to the fact that the Middleton family filed a lawsuit preventing the release of information regarding this case. The lawsuit states that the family has a privacy interest in preventing any photograph, video, sketches, or illustrative content from the death scene being released. And now, while this story is already incredibly suspicious, it gets worse. A woman linked to Middleton was found dead in a river with a similar extension cord. Ashley Haynes. Haynes was a mother of two. She vanished on January 12th after leaving a note on her kitchen counter stating, "On the water, love you all." After a massive search, her corpse was discovered 4 days later by a family friend submerged in 10 feet of water. Mrs. Haynes had a bag strapped to her leg with a green extension cord. Inside that bag was a large concrete block that measured 16 by 16 by 4. Once again, people close to Haynes cannot believe this woman committed in such a matter. A source close to Haynes who worked for a charitable group to feed and clothe the homeless tells Radar the 110-pound former model turned yoga teacher would have never taken her own life.
It's literally been something in my head every 15 minutes that I've been refreshing on the internet.
Maumelle police say Haynes's body was discovered around noon on Sunday by a search party. Not far from where crews searched for days after Haynes went missing last Wednesday.
I just don't know what could have happened that a strong paddler like herself and could end up in this way.
Just like Middleton, Haynes was said to be depressed, and her death was determined to be an unalive by investigators, even though neither of them left a suicide note. Now, to wrap it all up, there was no suicide note, no in-depth investigation, and little to no media coverage about those two people. Because to be honest, I'd never heard of them until researching the death of Jeffrey Epstein and finding this article. The death of Mark Middleton fits right into this pattern. The man who introduced Epstein to Clinton was found hanging with a gunshot wound to his chest, and it was quickly deemed an unalive. Furthermore, any kind of investigation relating to the case has been cut short. Despite this fact, there's one all-important detail that strongly hints to a non-unalive, meaning that he was actually killed by someone: the usage of a dollar store extension cord. Why would anyone who is adamant about committing suicide by hanging use a cheaply made plastic extension cord instead of an actual rope? Furthermore, why would a 100-pound woman use the same type of extension cord to attach her leg to a 58-pound concrete block? Simply does not add up. And it definitely doesn't make sense to me. And we all know this is like a story right out of a movie of someone who goes down that could potentially threaten the lives and livelihood of hundreds of prominent world elite, other billionaires, other people who, if you knew they were into some of this stuff, it would turn, the world upside down, the country upside down, whatever you want to say. Basically Jeffrey Epstein had to go. And then there's a piece of me that, believes he may not even be dead. But at the end of the day, we would never know. I think it goes both ways. You can have a case that he's definitely out of here because of so many other people being brought to light on the things that they were actually into, what these billionaires were actually doing. And then you could have a case that, they got him out of there. They staged his death. So there's never a Jeffrey Epstein trial. Nothing ever really comes to the light. This list of names that they give us will be passive. It won't be anything really juicy for us to know. I think we could go both ways on this story. You truly just never know when it comes to the world elite. That's why a bunch of this stuff was never covered by the media as far as people that was dying around him. But at the same time, that also gives me a sense that it may have been staged, as in his death. They just made sure to kill the people that were around him that knew a lot, so nothing else got out. At the end of the day, it's one of those things that, I can't jump to either side because honestly, he could have just ended up being expendable and they said, hey, man, we got to get him out of here. And this is how it's going to happen. set him up to get him going in the most secured prison in the country. And yeah, man, y'all let me know what y'all think about this, man. I just wanted to cover the death of Jeffrey Epstein, and for the people that didn't know, the others that died around him after Jeffrey Epstein was actually arrested and after he died. So yeah, man, y'all go ahead and let me know what y'all think in the comments. I was gonna keep this video short, not gonna make it too long. I just wanted to cover his death because I said I would a couple videos ago. So with that being said, it's Black Balloon, and I'm gonna see y'all soon. I'm out.